Playing for one of the top clubs in Europe is normally seen as one of the aspirational dreams for many young football players around the world, and it's easy to understand why. They have plenty of history, passionate fan bases, money to offer, and the best chance to win silverware. Or do they? Because this year so far in Europe, we've been seeing a rather uncomfortable trend of defending champions of the respective domestic top leagues actually struggling to retain their position at the top of the mountains. In fact, Real Madrid currently don't look likely to win La Liga. AC Milan, who finally won their first title in over 11 years in the 2021-22 season, are well off the pace in the race for finishing atop the Serie A table. And Manchester City, after years of dominance that was only punctuated by Liverpool in 2019-20, look firm second best favourites to actually win the Premier League and have been left behind by a resurgent Arsenal. But why exactly is it the case that so many of these top sides are struggling at the same time? Is it just a case of footballing dynasties beginning to crumble and needing rebuilding? Or is there something a lot deeper? Well, the answer is actually pretty different for all three of these clubs. So let's quickly take a look at why exactly it is these top sides in Europe are struggling as things speak. And we'll start off with Real Madrid, who, of course, you'd remember won both the La Liga and the UEFA Champions League last year and definitely looked like one of those sides who still had a lot to offer despite having some rather aging players. However, that's where the problem lay. A lot of their top stars are in fact aging right now, and there's a desperate need for newer players to come in because quite frankly, the old stars, despite still having a lot of quality, look like a shadow of their former selves. So that is one of the major issues when it comes to Real Madrid. If you see the form of the likes of Karim Benzema, Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, all of them were undeniably first choice players for Real Madrid right up till last season, and they were still performing at their peak. However, that hasn't quite been the case this year, and therefore a lot of their team play, their interplay, their spirit, all of it just looks like it just was left in the last season. There's a lot of issues, and of course, it hasn't been helped by the fact that the likes of Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo haven't quite been as consistent as you perhaps wanted to be. But the thing is that this Real Madrid side are very much dependent on their star players, and quite frankly, those star players haven't yet delivered and may actually be reaching a point where they could be replaced. The good news is a lot of these players will in fact be out of contract at the end of the season, which leaves Real Madrid a tough choice to make. Will they renew their contracts, or will they say thank you very much for your services and bring in fresh blood? There's a desperate need for fresh blood as of now, but transitions are never simply a case of in with the new and out with the old. So remains to be seen how exactly they'll proceed, but what is evident is that there is a need for a bit of a refresh. The same cannot be said about AC Milan, because quite frankly, this is a team that is built on younger players actually being able to, do well in a league that hasn't quite been technically at its best for a long time. But the problem is that a lot of the players who performed well for Real Madrid last year have not been performing as well this year. In fact, the likes of Fikayo Tomori, Sandro Tonali, and Rafael Leao haven't been anywhere close to their best so far this season. Yes, they've looked good in patches, but these three young players, were the key to everything that they did last year. So they really haven't been able to replicate that last year's form, and therefore Milan don't really look as good as they did last year. And in fact, so have the likes of Olivier Giroud and Theo Hernandez. Both of these French players were key to how AC Milan played last year, but both of them have been clearly suffering from a hangover of the Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup, where France ended up finishing second best, and both of these players kind of struggled in the final. To make things worse, a lot of their new signings so far this year haven't really performed as well as most people would have expected them to. Milan, to be fair, can't be spending too much big money. They aren't in a position to do so. So they've had to be clever and conservative with their transfer market dealings, but the likes of Divock Origi have not been able to live up to expectations. It doesn't help matters that players like Frank Kessie, who departed from the club on a free, haven't quite been able to be replaced as well as they perhaps should have. So with AC Milan, it's simply a case of a young team finally actually reaching the top of the mountain and now being unable to replicate the same form that got them there in the first place. Whether Stefano Pioli's side can actually reverse that trend, because the league at this point seems very much out of their grasp, but a top 4 finish is very much up for grabs. They're currently only 5th in this area standing, so they can actually still turn things around. There's plenty of potential in the side, but Pioli has admitted the team has a bit of a mental block, so they need to overcome that block soon, revive their season and ensure that last year's win in the Scudetto was not just a one-off, but rather the start of Milan dominating Serie A once again. As for Manchester City, they've been easily the most dominant side in as far as Europe's top 5 leagues are concerned, with the number of times they've won the Premier League. But this year they've really looked like a very different side, and I don't mean that as a compliment. For one, their defense hasn't quite looked as compact as it has been. For the other, they're more often than not susceptible to losing possession than being hit with very quick counter-attacks. And perhaps the biggest problem has been that Erling Haaland, whilst he's brought a lot of goals, has maybe sometimes been a little disruptive to City's play. Let's just quickly go all over those points. The defense hasn't quite looked compact because they haven't been as good in possession. The two are linked. For City and Guardiola, defense, the best form of defense is attack. So they look at their best when they're able to dominate possession for long spells and create chances. If they are caught out, however, the defense is more often than not susceptible to quick counterattacks. That has happened a lot this year, so that is something that needs solving ASAP. It seems to have definitely got into their heads that they have to be a little more cautious, so that final ball hasn't been as good. And as for the Erling Haaland problem, it seems like a great problem to have because Haaland has already scored 20 plus goals this year, so he's been doing his part of the job. He's held up his end of the bargain, but the simple fact of the matter is that with Haaland there, someone more for pure number 9, he hasn't quite been able to contribute to City's link-up play as much as he should have. In fact, there have been times in recent matches where Guardiola can actually be shouting, can be seen shouting at Haaland, telling him to move back and actually link up the play. Haaland is the type of player who prefers quick and easy passes into his feet or onto his head, which is the antithesis of how City plays. So there's definitely going to be some adjusting, and that'll take time. But in the time that that's happening, City have been struggling, and Arsenal have very much left them behind as far as the title race in England is concerned. So that's it. That is why these major teams have been struggling. It's very different reasons for all three of them. But if you're a fan of any of these sides, you'll doubtless be hoping that they can sort out their issues sooner rather than later, even if that doesn't mean it happening right now, because let's be frank, you're in the middle of the season. It's easier said than done sorting out such issues now. Easier to sort out at the end of the season or during the summer transfer window when new players can come in, because truth be told, all of these sides do look like they maybe need some new talent. Barring City, of course, they have a lot of talent. For them, the problems are tactical, but that is it. That is why all of these sides have been struggling so far to retain their stronghold over their country's top leagues. Why do you think, however, that the likes of AC Milan, Real Madrid and City are struggling? Well, you can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video, and also don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Last but not least, don't forget to download the AajTak app. Thank you all once again for joining us. I hope to see you with us through the day as you enjoy more videos that we'll be putting out. For now though, goodbye.